Well, we want to take some time for your questions and give you some honest answers. Pat, this first one comes from Linda, who says, how do you know if a word of knowledge is for you or not? How do you accept healing?
Well, you know, here's the deal. If there is a word and it quickens your heart and faith begins to rise, you can say, this is for me. It could be for 100 other people, but it could be God speaking to you. So you hear something, you say, that's for me, Lord, I receive it. You know, get on with it. Don't be debating whether it's for you or not. Just take it.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, that's interesting because so often we'll hear people say that when they're watching and they hear a word, they'll say, wow, that's
for me. That's exactly right.
Okay, this is Brenda who says, my husband is a pastor, but I don't want any part of it. I have tried, but it's just not working. I have to do so many things I don't want to do. I'm pulled in 50 different directions. Lately, it's been bringing me to a bottomless pit. I feel overwhelmed, discouraged, depressed. What do I do?
You know, you are reflecting thousands of pastors' wives. You're not the only one, because the demands are unbelievable. You've got a small group of rather narrow-minded people as your congregation. You have to please them. You have to please the Lord. You have to take care of your kids. You have to make sure your house is spotless. And it goes down the list. And, of course, you're pulled apart. What's my advice to you? You know, I really don't know. I think that you need to talk to your husband and say, look, I can't take this any longer. And now the chances are he's not going to leave the ministry. So what do? You get a separation under circumstances like that? I don't know. I think you need to get out of the fire, though, because it'll tear you apart and you'll wind up with a nervous breakdown. There's so many women. I mean, you're not the only one. There's so many pastors' wives that can't stand what's being done to them. And, you
Does
know,
a wife in that scenario that's a pastor's wife have the freedom, I guess, to define her role as she sees it and feels called of the Lord?
You're dependent on a small group of rather narrow-minded people who are your congregation. You know, you're either going to be dependent on them or you're going to serve the Lord. I decided the thing to do is to get set up where you serve the Lord and you please the Lord, and if you please them, the rest of it will take care of itself. But most pastors aren't in that situation. And it's tough. They don't have much money. And I can't express strongly enough my sympathy for the pastors and their wives. It is a tough calling. And many, many, many pastors have nervous breakdowns. Yeah. Many, many. So please get counseling, get somebody to help you, and then get wise advice and then follow it. All right?
This is Mark, Pat, who says, my question is about the report you showed on statin drugs. Why do we have the FDA? I was under the impression that they check out all the data and when a drug is being made before it's released.
That's ridiculous. It's money, ladies and gentlemen. The big pharmas are motivated by money. And they can give contributions to the FDA. They can help some of those officials. They can do all kinds of things. And furthermore, they don't have the staff to check out these drugs. And the research almost invariably comes from the drug companies. So statins, in my opinion, are dangerous. But many doctors, I mean, the preponderance of doctors prescribe statins like they're just the answer to life. And they're wrong. And we pointed out the deadly side effects of statin drugs. But does the FDA stop that? The answer is no.
Yeah, so that stamp of approval doesn't always mean what you think it does.
It sure doesn't.
This is Marilyn, who says, my daughter has been married for just over a year and a half. She and her husband met at church, and he appeared to be a believer. But over time, he started being very abusive verbally and emotionally. Her church urges her to stay with him and just draw closer to God and pray for her husband's salvation. My question is, would it be wrong of her to separate from him? This breaks my heart.
Well, I think she needs to have counseling. She needs to talk to some godly people, and not necessarily members of that church. But you know, in the law, there is a doctrine called fraud in the inducement. Fraud in the inducement. That sounds fancy.
Wow, never heard of that.
Well, now you're hearing about it.
I know, I'm all ears.
That's Law 101. You are inducing somebody to enter into a contract and you are lying to them about
deceitful about
what
who you are.
the details of that contract.
Wow.
And it's fraud in the inducement. So this man is acting like he's a Christian, like he's a sweet guy, and what they've done is he's deceiving her, and so they have ground under that fraud thing to separate. You know, God is always on the side of restoration, but at the same time, situations become intolerable, and the Lord knows that. He doesn't say that there's some kind of hell on earth you've got to enter into because you make a marriage vow. And if that woman is in hell on earth, she needs to get free. And I'm for her. Okay.